What do you think how many games you lost in your time playing Overwatch because somebody was unwilling to switch off of their hero? If the forums were to be believed, then counting those matches is near impossible for most of us given how frequently this happens. Overwatch is a game of adaptability and flexibility, and yet it seems like barely anyone is ever willing to actually flex and adapt. I mean, that very fact in itself is not very surprising. When given a variety of characters, players are very likely to be more fond of some than others. The idea that we end up trying to make our favorite characters work as often as possible over actually taking advantage of basic game design in the form of switching off said character is the natural result of the sheer gameplay variety we have been offered. The characters are so fundamentally different that they appeal to different types of players, reaching audiences far beyond the original core of FPS fans. So, is that it? We came up with one big reason why a lot of players are not very fond of actually flexing. But that can't be all there's to it, right? Obviously, there's more than one potential reason we could talk about, but what I want to do today is cover the other side of that coin. I want to talk about why flexing as a practice itself is actually costing a lot of players a lot of their beloved SR. In my last video, we have talked about how competitive play and the wish to achieve a higher rank end up turning into a massive grind that is anything but fun to participate in. And since I'm fairly confident that most of you don't feel like going back to watch that video before continuing here, let me give you a TLDR of what you have to know for the context of today's topic. The reason flex playing does not work in a lot of players' favor is because the game cares about how consistent your performance is. If you only occasionally peak for half a round but then suck for the remainder of that match, then the game is going to acknowledge that. Same goes for when your performance is always dependent on how well the rest of your team is playing. Blizzard is setting different standards for what kinds of statistics they expect from you for wins and losses respectively. Nobody is saying that you are supposed to carry 5 bot burgers into victory, but if you display a difference of night and day between having a good or a bad team, then the game is going to rate you based on that inconsistent performance. And if you perform so inconsistently, you are dragging your average performance across multiple matches down, meaning that you end up in a rank that is way below what you are capable of participating in should you have a good day or be properly motivated. Which in short means it's better to be decent from start to finish than carrying at the start of the match and then giving up halfway through because you are frustrated with your team not pulling their weight. Now granted, I did add a few bits of information in that recap of my last video based on the feedback I've seen in the comment section, but that is in essence what we have talked about last week. If you want the full brunt of that discussion, you can find the card in the top right corner. And with that massive spoiler out of the way, the culprit of today's video should become very apparent already, making this a rather short and simple discussion. Talking about low to average rankings in particular, the reason that flexing is often a bad idea is because you are making your own performance dependent on the rest of your team. When you have a team that direly needs a main tank, for example, but you are not a main tank player, then you have to make a decision. You either play a main tank and hope that the rest of your team knows what they are doing, while it's obviously not very confidence inspiring to have people lock DPS despite you needing a tank, or you simply play what you can do best. If you happen to have a good team, then you enabling them by playing what is needed can easily result in a victory. Not to mention that it is a huge morale boost to go into battle having all the roles covered that you traditionally want to see when playing Overwatch. But since you are not a main tank player, your performance is going to lack when your team needs somebody to clutch at key moments. Somebody who has the experience to make that tank work even in the face of adversity. In that sense, you are doing your team a disservice by playing something that you are just inherently bad at. Flexing can be a bad decision. Now, naturally, every player should display a certain level of flexibility when stepping into competitive play. Specializing yourself means that you can display supreme levels of proficiency, but at the end of the day, hard counters exist, and you insisting to play something despite being hard countered is making the match way more difficult than it has to be. But if you specialize on, let's say, projectile DPS and off tanks, then suddenly playing main support is not doing you or your team a favor. The other day I caught CarQ offhandedly say something very interesting on stream. Anything can work in solo queue. And that is very accurate. Competitive solo queue is far away from optimal play, even at the high end of the spectrum. Players have different ideas of what is the best way to play the game, and in essence, everyone is a specialist in their own right. And sometimes, all those different specializations do not create what would universally be considered an optimal composition. Morale plays a big role in competitive games. A player who already gave up in their mind is not putting as much effort as somebody who remains motivated despite starting off on the back foot. The problem is obviously that an already aggravated player often has trouble realizing that simple fact. the fact that a game is always winnable. There's also the fact that them giving up is not helpful for anyone involved. I am certain that all of you have stories to tell where you won a game that you felt you had no right of winning. One time, for example, I won a match of competitive play on Lucio while having 5 DPS heroes on my team, and not a single one of them was even a Smurf account. But because everyone knew how to play their heroes, it did not matter that we didn't create a meta comp of any kind. In fact, we absolutely rolled and smoked our enemies for 2 rounds straight on Lijiang Tower. And we had a blast doing it because nobody lost confidence after seeing the insta-logs. Obviously, Overwatch would be a way different experience if every player was aware of the fundamentals of this game. When everyone knew about counterplay, regrouping, staggering, map advantages and disadvantages, and when everyone followed that basic knowledge, then things like attack tourbillon would never work out. But that's really the core of our situation. Competitive play is not an optimal environment. The game never teaches us those crucial fundamentals, and even if it did, chances are that a lot of us would still do whatever we feel like doing anyway. That means that yes, anything can work in solo queue, and the game is always winnable. Playing something you are terrible at is doing your team a disservice, and so is giving up midway through. If you can only make your hero work when you have a good team and you get absolutely stomped, then maybe it makes more sense to switch to a comfort pick. Obviously, in an optimal world, we would be able to talk this out with our team, letting them know, hey, I'm terrible at Pharah, please do not put me on this hero. But you and I both know that we do not live in this world. We have to deal with a lot of selfishness, a lot of arrogance, and a lot of very oblivious teammates. It is my belief that in solo queue, you do not own anything to anyone. If you think flexing to an off pick will make you lose anyway, then maybe playing a hero you are consistently good with is the better decision. You have to remember, in solo queue, you do not play actual Overwatch. You're playing, well, solo queue Overwatch. You're playing an Overwatch where dumb strategies work for no apparent reason. You're playing an Overwatch where you have to make do with the things you are given rather than displaying the adaptability that is necessary in pro play. Competitive play is not about you being a good Overwatch player. It is about you being a good player at the heroes of your choice in Overwatch. And that makes a very fine difference. Now, if you have never played in a coordinated 6-stack for extended periods of time, then I highly recommend you go and do so. Because once you get to experience what real Overwatch feels like, you'll understand how much of a meme-fest ladder play actually is. And then all this talk about how you don't own anything to anyone and how it's more about you consistently performing on your specialized heroes rather than being a good and knowledgeable player in general will make way more sense. But you know, as always, you are more than welcome to disagree with me. And for that purpose, feel free to leave all of your thoughts and opinions on the subject in question down in the comment section below. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and maybe share this video with a friend you think would find it interesting. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.